stuff for me to read. I weighed about a grand total of about 135 pounds. Sure. This is 1973 or 4, you know. But yes, I went the night before and enjoyed it.
Did you ever see Frankfurt?
No, no, I didn't.
You heard them have
No?
that's the electronic German group that is on the Autobahn.
That sounds familiar, but no, I haven't seen that.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning. Good. Those identical robots.
Sheriff, how are you? Good.
But you know, later my friend, I had this friend who was the was an executive for Louisville Tourist Commission. Then was an executive for Nashville. Ben was an executive for Gaylord Entertainment, which owns the Line.
I'm trying to work on all of them. We're gonna be there. We'll hit him up right there.
Tons of concerts.
Hello, guys.
Throughout my life. I mean, I've seen Elvis Costello literally in about 3 feet. Same Ferrari, you know, all kinds. John Klein, all kinds. Stop and see the
Hey Eric, I got the street started.
Hi, I'm
That's okay.
Get out here.
I want to
You know,
make sure that
when I write, I take a photo. No, just kidding.
Here.
Are you staying in here, Ben?
just for a minute.
Okay.
Dina's coming. I'm trying to get a page set up. I made a note on your agenda.
Yeah, I saw that.
Okay, you can either address it or not. It's just, it's the correct number.
So I was right, they just had one number on there wrong? Okay. So all of the CV 20048 should be replaced by CV
Now, Michelle should have
2132?
the numbers are correct on hers. They don't. I didn't.
Okay.
But we need to make sure.
Morning, Travis.
We sign it.
Good.
We gotta change those.
Okay.
I thought I got them all.
Mitchell, how are you? Good to see you over there, Mitchell.
Chris, good to see you.
Mitch, how are you?
Resolutions, they're gonna.
Oh, okay. Before we do, we'll make sure.
At some point, do we need to meet on this muni fund applications?
Yeah.
Do yet.
Yep. But when was the final turn-in date? Do you
I
know?
thought last month.
We probably need to get together then. Who's on it? You, me, and Travis? You on the community fund,
Yeah,
Travis?
you and Travis and
How
Chris
many
Davis.
applications ended up coming in?
It was a whole page full.
Looked like about 20. I looked at them the other day.
Hey, they must have come in last minute then.
They did.
They did.
I can do next
I'd like to
week.
ask you to join me in a prayer. These are the words of Billy Graham in New York in 1957. Our Father and our God, we pray that we all might be conscious thine eye is upon us. If God can see the sparrow fall, if he has the hairs of our head numbered, we know he watches us, that he loves us, that he cares for us. And we're told in your word that he cares for us so much, he sent his only begotten Son to the cross to die that we might find forgiveness for our sins. We pray your Holy Spirit will draw all men unto the Savior, and we ask in his name, amen.
Amen.
Now the pledge. Call the meeting to order and ask for the roll.
Commissioner Dilkins,
Present.
Davis.
Present.
Blanton.
Here.
Constantopoulos.
Present.
Thompson.
Here.
And Graham.
Present.
You should have a copy of the agenda in front of you. I do have one just changed to note for everyone. Item number 15, there's a typo in several locations referring to CV number 20C048. The correct number is CV 20C-132. That's on item 15. I'll accept a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? I will also introduce the consent agenda items, which are number 10, consider approval of the minutes. Number 11, review the treasurer's report. Number 12, acceptance of the MOA from Commonwealth of Kentucky Department of Agriculture relating to spay and neuter program. And that is the consent agenda. Motion has been made and seconded. No discussion. All those in favor respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. We have no one for public comments. We do have a note in your minutes, an indigent burial. Kathleen Larson, date of death 8/16/2021. Item number 8, a presentation by Page C with PAYCOM regarding payroll and HR. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. Perfect. Well,
But we'll set you up when you register the app.
awesome. Well, I'm really excited to meet with you guys today. I just want to say thank you for allowing me to come in here and present PAYCOM to you all. So really what I want to do today is kind of go through a little bit some of the findings about PAYCOM, some of the things that we found with meeting with your team, and then share a little bit about our history of our company, and then lastly show you the presentation. So if you want to go ahead and jump to the next 2 slides. First thing I want to talk about today in the presentation, some of the things are confidential in regards to some of PAYCOM's information. So as I go through this presentation, just know some of the information in your booklets might be different than what's on the screen. I just can't post any of that information about our clients and our pricing just on the internet. So just so you guys know, that's not there. But a little bit about me, I've been with PAYCOM for almost 10 years now. Actually started out in our Oklahoma branch. Worked there for about 6 years, then transferred to Minnesota. It was way too cold for me, and I didn't like when I said y'all. So I came over here and loved Kentucky ever since. So just wanted to introduce myself because one of the things when you typically buy software is you meet with the sales team, they sell you all this amazing stuff, and then they leave, and then a whole other team implements the product, and they don't know why you purchased the software. So one of the things that's really unique about PAYCOM is that I'm not just the sales rep, but I'm also the quarterback of the implementation process. So with that, I can't come in here and promise you the stars and the moons if that's not actually going to come to fruition. So like I said, I've been with PAYCOM for almost 10 years. I love working with municipalities just because each one is unique. You all have different rules when it comes to labor, and it's just so fun just being able to set up and make PAYCOM a good fit for your organization. So wanted to introduce myself, just a little bit about PAYCOM. We are a publicly traded company. We were founded back in the 90s when the internet was a brand new thing. So hence the name PAYCOM. We're the first internet-only payroll provider. Since then, we've had tremendous growth. So like I said, we have clients in all 50 states. Last year, we were added to the S&P 500, and the year before that, we were on the Fortune second fastest growing company in the world. I like to point that out because even though we have tremendous growth, we've had over 40% growth year after year, our retention rate continues to climb. So our retention rate's at 93%, which is the highest in the industry for any publicly traded company. And what's big about that is we don't have contracts. So the clients that are staying with us because they want to, not because they're locked into anything. So that's just a little bit about PAYCOM. I want to obviously talk to you guys about how we can help the organization. First off, a little bit about PAYCOM and that we're different is we really focus on the employee experience. Yes, we want the system to work for Janet and Alicia, but there's more employees within the organization. So if your employees are happy, that's going to trail up to the whole organization. It's going to be a win-win for the company. Obviously, everything within PAYCOM is proprietary to us, so it's one single system from the ground up. Very secure. We're ISO dual certified and bit encryption technology. Our system has never been hacked, so even though it's on the internet, you guys can feel very secure that our information is secure. So one of the things that I did when I first met with your organization is sit down and really understand some of the challenges that they're having with their current provider and really identify areas that PAYCOM can help. Number one, having true customer support and help when needed. The software that you're using is great. I mean, they're a local company here, but the challenge with the software is that it's a Millennium-based product. So what they do is they purchase it, kind of like if you were to go back to Staples or Office Depot back in the day, you buy it off the shelf and then you start selling it. Challenge with that is as technology changes, as legislation changes, as you guys obviously know what that's like, it's really hard to change technology to keep up to date with compliance changes if you don't own the software. And so that's the big thing with PAYCOM is our technology is organically grown by us. So as things change with FFCRA, CARES Act, PPE loans, PAYCOM can adapt our technology really quickly to meet the needs of your organization. Giving you guys one single system for your employees. So we looked at this process map and drew out all the different systems that you guys are currently using with payroll solutions. And so what you'll see in this diagram is each icon is essentially a different part of the payroll and HR process. And all of those arrows are essentially data that's being pushed from one system to the other. So Janet or Alicia is physically keying in data into different systems. And so every single system that's out there, even though they could be one single system like your Paylocities, your ADPs, your Paychexes, at the end of the day, this is what the back end of their product looks like. They don't own all those different technologies. And the number one differentiator between PAYCOM is it's one single system. So everything from the employee life cycle, onboarding, being able to do their onboarding documents for benefits, for background checks, being able to request time off, do their PTO requests, everything from a government compliance standpoint, all the way down to being able to do personal action forms and that sort of thing. And one of the big things I like to point out is our direct data exchange. So we actually did a study with Ernst & Young, and they found for every change that an employee has to go to their manager or they have to go to HR for, it's costing the company $4.51. And so that could be something as small as, hey, I don't know what my PTO balance is. Hey, Janet, can you look this up for me? Or, hey, I forgot to clock out. Can you fix this in Swipe Clock for me? So then Janet or their supervisor is taking the time to listen to the employee, then turn around, key in that same information to the system. It's like, what if the employee can just go into the system and make the change themselves? So we're really big. Our technology is, I'd like to say, consumer-grade technology. I'm sure you guys use like mobile apps today on your phone with mobile banking. You never had to take a course on it. You just downloaded the app and you started using it from day one. But technology within our marketplace doesn't exist because of that previous slide. There's multiple systems, so it makes it really cumbersome for the employee to know where to go. So one, we train all of your employees, we show them how to use it, but two, it's so user-friendly, they technically don't need training within the system. So I'm not gonna get into the rest of this PowerPoint, but I am gonna flip over to my PAYCOM app and show you a few things. So I'm gonna switch Janet for a second. Just 1 second. Sometimes it takes a minute to load. There we go. Okay, so I'm logged into the PAYCOM app. I'm going to go ahead and lock that down because sometimes I get text messages. But one of the things you'll see for this employee app is it's actually going to scan their face or their fingerprint. So that way your employees don't have to know their username and password to get into the system. We actually just save it on their system, train them how to use it, that sort of thing. But what I'm logged into right now is the employee self-service. So this is anything that the employee can do today. So like I said, today they have multiple apps. They're going to Swipe Clock, they're then coming to Janet, and they're going to Payroll Solutions. Within PAYCOM, they can do everything within here. They can come in here, they can view their PTO balance. They can get their pay stubs, get their W-2s at the end of the year, sign documents. But you guys can also use this as a communication tool too. So if something changes, like, okay, we're closed today because of crazy weather, or whatever the reason may be, you can actually push messages out to the employees. And if they have the app, it's going to show up like a push notification. So that way they don't have to open up their email address and they can actually get that communication right away. Employees can also communicate directly to their manager, to IT, to payroll. One of the things we noticed within the past year with COVID, there was a rise in phishing emails. There's more people working from home, more areas for liability for be able to access. And so today what they can do is they can actually pull out the PAYCOM question and ask different questions. Maybe I have a question when benefits enrollment is going to be available. This can give them predefined answers, or it can be something like this that's a text box. They can ask a question that can be fielded directly to their direct supervisor, or that can be filled to Janet or to Alicia. And then all those answers are coming back in a secure place all through the PAYCOM app. One other thing I want to show you is just the ability for employees to sign documents, just how easy it is. If you guys have a new employee that comes in here and they're doing their onboarding documents, or maybe you have a new policy change. Employees will get notified when they have an onboarding checklist or a document they need to sign, and anything that they need to complete is all electronic for them. And it's user-friendly. So just to show you a W-4, this is always something that employees never know how to fill out, and just so you guys know, HR can't advise them on how to fill it out. So instead of it being that confusing W-4 form, it's just the employee coming in here, choosing their filing status, they have any dependents, come in here and acknowledge. They can sign this electronically. I'm terrible at signing it, so I always just type it in. That's going to sign that document. It's going to update payroll, so then payroll doesn't have to turn around and key in data. And then it's going to store that new document within that employee's file. So just to show you how easy that is, once the employee completes it, I can come into that W-4 form, open it, and it actually takes out all the information that I filled out on the employee side into that true tax form for you all. So those are some of the things. I just wanted to give you kind of a high level. I know you guys probably won't be in the majority of this system, but just all the functionality that the employee will be able to do, and then all the functionality that a supervisor or a manager can do. So I can actually toggle over to my manager on the go, and again, it's one single system for the manager. They can see their employees, so if you ever need to communicate to someone directly, pull out the app. Maybe I need to call Pam, send her a text, or email her. It's a single system, so it has all of her information right there. You can click call her, it'll open up the phone and actually call her directly through the app. And then from a compliance standpoint, you guys have all the communication stored in one single system. So if you ever were to be audited, if you ever had an employee had a question, you have all of that there. Being able to approve those punch change requests, time off requests, being able to come in here and answer any questions. From an analytical standpoint, you guys have this too. Managers obviously can only see what they have the ability to see, so you can restrict their access so they can only see that. But whatever's important to them from a reporting standpoint, if they're looking at head counts, termination, maybe you guys are looking at total expenses for the company, tax liability. What's nice is all these reports are run up to the minute. You can actually drill down into that information and say, hey, I want to look at that now across department. Now I want to look this across position, whatever your cost centers are, and drill further and further into that data. So that's just kind of a high level. I just wanted to show you guys the technology instead of talk about it. Like I said, we're very involved from an implementation standpoint. Pre-COVID, depending on how you guys feel, we come out here, we train your employees, we train your supervisors, we train, the admin in the system, and it's unlimited training. So if in a year from now you feel your employees need additional training, we'll come out here and train them within the system. So that's all I have. If you guys have any questions for me.
Questions?
Yeah, I've got a couple. What's the typical time frame on implementation?
Yeah, I would say if you look at our numbers from last year, our average turnaround time is 8.7 weeks. So typically a client of your size, we say probably 8 to 11 weeks to get you fully up and running.
Okay. And have you had experience, I know that I saw some government agencies, I know with the fire department, that's always been a kind of an issue, the way their time is, where they work the 24 on and 48 off.
Mm-hmm.
You all have experience in that and can set that up to where it won't be an issue with them?
We can, yeah. So I've worked with a lot. So I also wanted to mention, I didn't say this earlier, but that slide that talks about the municipalities and government agencies we work with, those are ones that I've personally have brought on. So we have many more. I just wanted to include ones that I've transitioned. But yeah, police and fire, we know there's complex labor rules and scheduling, but yes, we can set that up within the system to meet the needs.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks guys.
Item number 9, presentations regarding tax rates for fiscal year 2021-2022. Up first, Becky Kissick with the Health Department.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you all for having us. Of course, on behalf of the Clark County Board of Health, we are here this morning to present on June 15th. It was actually voted by our board after much discussion to maintain our tax rate at 4.6 per 100,000 of real property. that is a maintenance for us. It has remained the same since about 2014. And so this is truly a year for us to rebuild. And so we are going to continue to assess and provide that information to the board in terms of expansion and or growth, but again, have voted to maintain a 4.6 rate.
Any questions for Becky?
I have a couple.
Absolutely.
What kind of reserve is the health department sitting on now?
So I'll be honest with you, right now I have 1.9 in my general account. I have 1.7 in my taxing district. My average expenses, or last year my expenses were right at 3.1 million. So we've really seen kind of a shift, I think. Now, we're trying to be the best stewards of course, of our tax money and our tax base. We've got about $500,000 in capital projects. That is a roof and HVAC system and a telephone system that we've not been able to do. They were board approved, but we're waiting to get those pieces of equipment installed. And so that reserve for us, last month my average expenses were $633,000. And so that reserve, paired with some of those capital projects that we know are coming up, in addition to watching our program growth. And I think one of the best examples of that truly is also our HANDS program. So 5 years ago, I look at my HANDS program. We spent $554,000. I'll get it together at some point today, I guess. We spent $554,000 on that program. We utilized $2,000 of tax base to operate that program. Last year, looking at changes in terms of telehealth and the way in which we provide that program and staffing, we actually ended up using about $152,000. So when I talk about rebuilding and I talk about growth, those are the programs that we're looking at. We're really looking at those programs that we have seen huge changes over the course of the last 18 months, of course, in light of the pandemic. And then figuring out the best way in which we can provide those, ensuring that service to this county and to our folks here, but also doing that in a really fiscally responsible way.
Is there any kind of thought or plans to do or provide any kind, given the fact that we've had this surge in the Delta variant and whatever variant is coming up next, to do any kind of testing? Because I'll be honest with you, Ms. Kissick, I think that's been the one public health failure in Clark County over the last year and a half, is the lack of plentiful testing at times when we need it.
Yep.
Where people have to scurry around and either try to get into first care, which thank God we had them, because for a long time that's the only testing you could get quickly in Clark County, unless you want to run to Lexington to Commonwealth Stadium or Legends Field or someplace over there. I mean, I know some health departments were doing testing and some were not.
That is correct.
But I think given the amount of reserves that this health department has, I'll be honest with you, I think that is a total failure on the part of public health in Clark County. And I appreciate all you all are doing, especially with the vaccines, although I had to go to Moorhead to get mine last spring. As many people I know did went out of county. I know people went to Ashland, people went to Lexington, people went to Georgetown. And I understand you can only get so many vaccines, but I mean, given the amount of money that the department has in reserves, I think some real thought ought to be given to an organized public health program for testing, so that we're not relying on CVS and First Care for any testing for a county with almost 37,000 people in it. Mm-hmm. And I'm deeply disturbed by the fact that there hadn't been more movement in that direction. I know people have different ideas about masking and vaccines, and I'm respectful of that. But I mean, the testing, I mean, to me, that's the foundation. It's more important than how many posts are made on Facebook of how we're in the red or how many people tested positive. You know, I think there ought to be some real consideration by you and your board for that. And in light of the fact that, you know, you're going to be collecting more revenues because assessments are going up. I mean, we know real estate's on fire now. Most assessments, you know, if they go anywhere, they're going to go up. So if you leave that rate the same, you're going to get more revenue. You already have a tremendous reserve. And again, I mean, I just implore you to think about organizing some testing countywide for anybody who needs it or wants it. And I understand some don't. But we've got these kids back in school. Mm-hmm. We get these updates from the school system about all the kids that are isolated and quarantined. And, you know, we don't know whether we're going to be in school a month from now or not.
I think out of 171 school districts, they said 32 are now, have sent the kids home.
Yes. So let me touch on a couple things there. I'll be honest with you, our biggest issue is capacity. So I don't have a nursing staff that I can really pull and reallocate all the time, and that's been our biggest challenge. It's one of those things, we continue to advertise. I started the year, I started the year with 29 employees, I'm down to 23. I'm trying to hire, like everybody is trying to hire. We've advertised some positions 3 and 4 times and aren't getting any applicants. So for us, I think it's more about a capacity piece. I will say to you that we have worked incredibly hard to serve this county in the best way in which we know how. Many of those have come through partnerships. So you're right, we are in ongoing discussions with the school system to figure out how to provide a testing option. We also partnered very early on with Clark Regional Medical Center to allow for that statewide testing. So when folks call me and they say, I've been exposed and I need to be tested, that's who I call. In addition to getting my doctor's order from my medical director, I then direct you out to Clark Regional Medical Center. Through those partnerships, we've been able to provide much of the service. Now, could we have done better? Sure, we can always do better. But I think it's one of those things that if you're interested in being tested, we want to hear about that and we want to help facilitate that process. Some folks choose not to wait the 48 hours that it's now taking to get a test result through the state lab. They choose to go to a Wild Health, a CVS, or a Walgreens, and we certainly respect that. But it is one of our things that for us, it's honestly sheerly a capacity issue at this point.
Well, I would ask that maybe you get with Judge in the next month or two and maybe come back and update us on what progress, if any, you've made.
Okay.
And if there's anything this court can do, or if anything the judge's office can do. Because if anything, this surge, whatever you think about COVID or masking or any of that, it's going to take a concerted effort in public health.
Absolutely.
And there may be nothing we can do. And I understand everybody's shorthanded. I'm seeing they're advertising nurses for $90 an hour at St.
Right.
Joe, so I get it. But we're going to have to be able to test people on a wider scale than what we're doing. We can't rely on a CVS drive-through or a Walgreens drive-through.
I will agree.
And I'm thankful they're doing it because if they weren't, I don't know what people would do other than drive 30, 40 minutes to the other side of Lexington.
Absolutely.
But that's my thought. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have Julie Maruskin with Clark County Library.
It's good to see you all this morning. Thanks. I know all of you from the library, if not from here. So I'm just here to present our rate for the year. Our board voted on August the 18th, 2021 in regular meeting, and Judge Pace was there. We were pleased to have him as well to join in the discussion. For the rate this year is an alternative rate of 5.5 in real and 9.59 in personal property. This year, our compensating rate would have been 6.3, personal 9.99, and the 4% would have been 6.50, and real property would have been 6.50, and personal 10.31. So we have taken an alternative rate, usually a custom rate, which is lower than compensating since 2015. Out of the last 9 years, we have taken the alternative rate 9 times. So we're pleased to be at this point, to tell you the truth. And right now we do have reserve money that is not earmarked of approximately $1.8 million. That is going to go into something we've talked about for quite a while, which is a specific type of outreach program. And we've experimented with Rosemary Codell Brooks Place. We are doing not a branch, but specific drop mini libraries. We've already done this in several schools where we have books that we manage that are available to the residents or to the students in those schools. So that is under the aegis of a Tom Tucker memorial as well. I don't know how many of you remember Mr. Tucker. Anybody here remember him at all? He just passed away. And he was down on Main Street before we had before we had the outreach program that we have. On his own volunteer hook, would gather up books and go sit with people who were shut in. His bookmobile would stop in a particular place, but they didn't necessarily go in. So that's our tip of the hat to Mr. Tucker, and we hope to continue that on a much broader scale. Other than that,
Can you
Anybody have
explain
questions?
the reserve fund to the court? Because I know it's a little bit confusing from the meeting. There's like,
it's very
it's
confusing.
divided in different ways.
We do have a one-year contingency fund. So if something unimaginable happened, we have a way to carry the library through a year. If something happened and we had to close it. We do have reserves over that. In spite of we usually get such a good return rate in this county, in part thanks to Michelle, that in spite of what our anticipated revenue is, we've always run a little bit over. And a little bit partly due to the collection rate in this county and partly due to the way franchise taxes are collected, from my understanding from the Department of Revenue, can run anywhere from $30,000 to $90,000 over, even when we're trying to balance it on a knife's edge, which is what we try to do. So this year, we are actually running a budget that is a calculated risk of 12% lower in anticipated revenue than our budget. Because over the past few years, we anticipate that we will be right on point. So part of that, again, that the overage that is not earmarked currently will probably mostly go toward, it will be earmarked in January, and that funding will be earmarked for book collections throughout Clark County, essentially many libraries. So if any of you have a garage or something in your neighborhood, let me know. We'll put you in a mini library in.
So the 1 year operating fund, how much is that?
1.9.
And then I guess the set aside money from the endowment.
1.6.
So it's a total of about 3.5 million.
Yes.
The way we look at things typically is just throw it all in one pot. That's the reserve.
Right.
Okay. So about 3.5 million. Yeah, I would encourage anyone who wants to attend a library board meeting, especially when they talk about taxes. They've got a couple people who, really dig into the numbers, and like she said, look at the past 5 to 10 years in trends. And, like she said, they see that every year they bring in more even than the state calculates. And they decided to pass, that money back to the taxpayers. And I think, most people know how I feel about that. And I just want to commend your board. I think your tax rate was, tremendous this year. I mean, cutting taxes nearly 10% in 1 year is an amazing accomplishment. And so I just want to thank you for that.
Well, I appreciate that, and we do have past board members to thank for that, because when we went into the expansion in 2008, this was a planned leveling. We knew that at some point, Clark County is very interesting, unlike Bourbon County, which will end up with probably 3 or 4 branches, true branches, not just collections. This is more central in a lot of ways, so we will probably never have a bricks and mortar branch. No study has shown us that is going to be effective, because branches are incredibly expensive to run. The drop collections, or the mini libraries, where we have outreach librarians that go out and check on things, but there are teachers, or Brooks Place has been fabulous to us. Their recreation directors have managed those collections. They jumped into being alternative librarians just feet first, so we're grateful to have them help us. Any place we can get somebody to help us do that is obviously something that adds to that particular institution, and it's something where we can rotate it in and out, so they always have fresh materials. And we're thinking that that's going to be the best way to go with that particular funding, essentially just to purchase books and materials. So, would you all like me to sit down now?
Any other questions for Julie?
Please come to a board meeting, and in October, Chip Sutherland, who is the vice president at Hilliard Lyons, who is a library finance specialist and has been our financial advisor forever, is going to attend, and he is fascinating to listen to on a number of levels.
And that's October?
Huh?
You said that was October?
October,
Okay.
3rd Wednesday of the month at 4:30. So,
Thank
Okay.
you. Appreciate your hard
Thank
work.
you.
Thank you all. Come see us.
And last, we have Shonda Johnson with the extension.
Good morning.
Good
Thank
morning.
you guys for having me. I'm not as exciting as Julie. But I do appreciate you all having us, me today, and wanted to let you all know that on August 16th, the Clark County Extension District Board met and voted to slightly lower taxes this year. Our real property will be 3.133 at that rate, and personal property at 4.59. We had discussions, some robust discussions about how that would look for us this year, and if any of you all have been to the extension office, you know we have gone from 5 agents to 2, and I'm now the most senior agent there at a full 3 years. So we didn't have the opportunity to do as much programming last year, which did allow some of our money to come back in. So we thought our board decided that this would be a good time to do that and be able to help out in this current time. So.
Any questions for Shonda? I will say that I'm glad that the extension board voted to decrease taxes as well. And any of these boards that typically show a year after year excess, especially when you've already got a reserve built up. And how much does the extension have in reserve? I should have asked that.
We have our year.
All in one pot.
I don't like the pot. The year is operating because we are required by our statutes to have that. We do have our operating budget and then a 5 and 10 year plan. But altogether, it is about 1.7 million.
About 1.7 million. Okay. And how much is the 1 year, the
1 year.
taxes?
In terms of how many should we bring in?
Yeah.
Or it's 980,000.
Okay, so 1.7, 900. Got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
I don't get any questions. I'm going to tell you all the exciting things we're doing. Thank you.
All right. Moving to the regular agenda, item number 13, consider approval of the transfers. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Item number 14, consider approval of the bills list. You all should have a more recent copy of the bills list. Did everyone get that?
Yep.
Okay.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion also carries. Now, item number 15, as you can see, this is 15A through L. I'm willing to consider this as one motion to accept A through L, or if you would like to divide it up and view them separately, feel free to do so, but someone make a motion.
I make a motion to approve A through L, 15A through L.
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Got one correction.
Okay.
On the contract for professional services,
J.
back on page 3, it says our county judge executive for Clark County is Aubrey Gritton. So you've been replaced, Judge.
I've been replaced. Anderson County's taken over. And we will change that, and I'll accept that as a friendly amendment.
Just to let you know that I do read this stuff.
Good deal. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion also carries. We have nothing for closed session. Magistrate comments, Magistrate Graham,
Nothing.
Magistrate Thompson.
One thing, Judge, what's the status of the website?
Janet just left for a meeting on the website, so she's meeting with the website people today. I believe that the launch is supposed to occur within the next 10 weeks. Eric, do you have anything you want to add on that?
She's meeting today, and I believe they're giving her a preview of what it should look like.
Mm-hmm.
And they should have a more, like, ready for you all to view by the end of September, October.
Okay.
I'm getting a lot of complaints. I'm sure you
Gotcha.
are too, so.
Yep. Daniel?
I know we've had a lot of complaints, but, I mean, we've had that same website for probably 20 years, I think. So, I mean, we're at least making the effort to change it. So I
Yeah.
appreciate us taking that step forward to move that.
Yeah, but as I recall, they told us it'd be down for 6 weeks. It's been a lot more, so.
Oh, I don't remember the time frame on that, but the, one thing that I want to say is I appreciate the, taxing districts coming out and presenting the rates and the information that they provided. I mean, I think Magistrate Davis said it good, or made a very valid point there in regards to, the tax revenues in the county have tremendously gone up. I think we saw about a 5%, roughly a 3 to 5% increase, I think is what,
Yeah,
UVA is
it
reporting.
depends on how you address the Danimer money, which is part of it. I believe we had to give Danimer roughly a $20 million tax break due to some agreements that were made in the past. So if you take the Danimer increase along with the rest, I believe it was in the ballpark of 4%, give or take.
Yeah, so you know, the good thing is that the tax levels are decreasing, but you know, you're still gonna generate a good amount of revenue as well, so, and without any programs being affected, so I really appreciate the tax districts for doing that. And, one thing that Davis mentioned, I never thought about the testing, but I understand the capacity. We've talked about those issues with the, amount of employees and trouble finding people to work with the health department. But mentioning the testing, and one thing, Ms. Kissick, if we can take a look at, is I don't know if maybe some of these local doctor's offices are having trouble getting the test, or if that's something maybe we could look at providing them the test where they don't have that type of expense, where they could still administer them, where people could reach out to the primary care. It's just something off the cuff, but I think that you know, would be a good idea. I know with the health department, we don't have the people to do it, but maybe we could do some partnerships like that. I thought that was a very good idea that Magistrate Davis had mentioned there. So with that, that's all I got, Judge.
Thank you. Magistrate Blanton?
A couple things. The last meeting I spoke of, Casey Creek going to look at the annex over there. They did look at it. They gave us an estimate. It included a few more things than did when we spoke with Jake Vaughn of Bluegrass Services. So I gave both of those to Janet to look at. But quite frankly, if you haven't looked at the gutters on the addition over there, they're falling off. So we really need to address those if we don't do anything else. But it does need to be cleaned, and we need to kind of put that on our agenda because it's in bad shape. But those gutters are really falling off. Update on the playground for College Park. The last I heard, it's due in September the 21st. There was kind of some delay with some back order on some parts. So we should get that in here shortly. And then the last thing, as a result of the Pioneer Festival, had lots of good comments on the courthouse. So that's good to hear.
Yeah, I heard some of those as well, Robert. Magistrate Davis?
Just one or two things, Judge. First of all, the Heritage Commission is going to have its fundraiser, the Pig Pickin' Barbecue, Saturday, September the 18th. That's going to be there at Holyrood. It's been a great event the last couple of years. And there's information on the Facebook pages about it, and I think I've shared a couple things. And if anybody needs a ticket, please let me know, and I'll get you hooked up with that. It's a good fundraiser. It's been lucky to have Constable David Puckett do the cooking the last couple of years. I think he's doing it this year again. He does a great job with his barbecue pork and chicken.
Do you all buy the food, or does he donate?
You know, I think at least the first couple of times, I think the Constables Association actually donated the food. I think they're doing that again this year, if I'm not mistaken, but they have in the past, and we're really appreciative of that. They've been a huge help with helping the Heritage Commission get some funding through fundraising and not, have to be able to do more for Holyrood and other historical projects in Clark County. I said what I was going to say, Judge, of course, earlier with respect to the health department testing and all that. But and we've discussed this before, but I think that when the legislature meets in January for the regular session, I don't think this is going to be something taken up in special session this week. But in the regular session, Judge, I think that I hope and will urge definitely our legislators, but all of them to consider, and this is something you and I have talked about, is the role of taxing districts in the counties and some additional local oversight for those. And I'm pleased that 2 of the 3 that we have, lowered the taxes. And I hope that trend continues. It definitely has with the library. But I think there's been, as you know, Judge, a lot of uproar the last few years about taxing districts and the fact that, you have essentially boards of local people, and we appreciate their service, but, they're unelected and they're setting tax rates, which a lot of people that talk to me have a real problem with that. And they understand the role of those branches of local government and what they're doing. But the fact you have taxes set by, boards and groups of people who are not elected, I think it bears a lot more debate than it's received. And I hope that, I know there's been some push, particularly people in the state Senate, about doing something about that. I hope that there's continued scrutiny of that. And not that we want those agencies to go away. They all do very good things for communities. But I definitely think that the structure of that needs to be looked at. That's all I have, Judge.
I've heard that there are some people, I think there's some Democrats actually in eastern Kentucky and some Republicans in western Kentucky working together on that bipartisan effort, but we'll see what they come up with.
Magistrate Davis, on that pig roast, are they doing the drive-through again, or are they gonna actually have it set up? Do you know yet?
I think they're probably doing both. I think there's going to be some tables. It's open air, so it's not indoors.
Good deal.
Master Elkins?
I have nothing, Judge.
Okay. I will just go back to the taxing districts simply because I know if it's a little confusing to me, it's probably oftentimes very confusing to those who aren't in it every day. There are some statutes that relate to how much reserve you have to keep on hand. Now, you all know that we have a reserve account that, if you take all of our reserves in general right now, we're at $7+ million. Our total budget for the general fund, closer to 15, 16 million in general. But there's some statutes for these taxing districts that I believe require them to have 3 months. They're recommended to have a year. Now, oftentimes, when calculating the budget, that 3 months, it's almost always in the taxing districts, they just set aside a whole year, which is not the required amount, it's the recommended amount, at least that's my understanding. So that year is not even looked at. And then there's a whole other reserve account on top of that, which is typically what is referred to as the reserve account. So in taxing district parlance, the reserve account is not actually the rainy day fund. The rainy day fund is usually a whole year that's been set aside. And then there's a whole other reserve account that relates to everything over that. And I'm not saying every taxing district operates that way, but I'm saying that's something that I have picked up on just from what I've seen in general in Clark County and other places. So just note that. That's why I typically ask, how much do you have? Just add it all up into one big pot. And typically that's a much larger number. The example I use for us is if we had a whole year of operating expenses plus another year, we'd have $30-some million. And what would the public think about that if we held on to $30 million of their money? I don't think they'd like it. But that's all I have. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. We stand adjourned at 10:15.